Tucker Carlson, I want you to pause and ask yourself a very uncomfortable question. Is America on the brink of another civil war? That sounds extreme, doesn't it? When you look around, when you watch the nightly chaos, the polarization, the hatred growing in our communities, you realize this isn't some distant, far off possibility. It's happening now, and the truth is America may already be tearing itself apart from within. Look around carefully and you'll see the pattern. You don't need to be a historian or political scientist to recognize what's happening in this country. We are witnessing the classic signs of a nation unraveling. Broken trust, rising resentment, communities where people don't even speak the same language anymore. Not literally, but politically, culturally, spiritually. That's how civil wars begin, not with some giant announcement or formal declaration, but with the quiet breakdown of daily life, the steady erosion of shared values, the small but visible cracks in the foundation. And those cracks are here. Cities where crime has become normal, streets where businesses are boarded up because they can't survive the chaos, communities where neighbors glare at each other like strangers. It's the collapse of ordinary order that warns you something deeper is going wrong. And let's be honest, none of this is an accident. Division doesn't just happen on its own. It's engineered, it's used as a tool by those in power. Politicians know that a united America is a dangerous America, dangerous to them, not to us. Because when people come together, when people agree on what's right and wrong, when they demand accountability as one, the political class loses control. They can't risk that. So they've built an entire system based on keeping you divided. They create categories, race, class, gender, ideology, and then tell you your enemy isn't the corrupt elite or the failing institutions, it's your neighbor. That person across the street who votes differently, who thinks differently, who looks differently. Suddenly, we're not one country anymore. We're tribes at war with each other. Who benefits from that? The same people who designed it. You see it every election cycle. Instead of solutions, we're given enemies. Instead of leadership, we're given blame. You're told that if your life feels harder, it's not because of reckless spending or failed policies. It's because of someone who doesn't look like you, someone who disagrees with you politically, someone who belongs to the other side. That's not leadership. That's manipulation. And it's tearing this country to pieces. A real leader would bring people together, would remind Americans that our common interests are bigger than our differences. But that's not what we have. We have opportunists, men and women who measure success not by the health of the country, but by the size of their vote margins, their campaign donations, their TV appearances. Division isn't a bug in the system. It is the system. And unless people wake up to that reality, unless we start asking who profits from this endless cycle of division, the fractures we see now will grow into something irreversible. This is how it always starts, with distrust, with resentment, with leaders fanning flames instead of putting them out. That's where we are right now in this very moment. And if we pretend otherwise, if we act like this is just politics as usual, we're lying to ourselves. History doesn't forgive nations that ignore the warning signs. It punishes them. And if we don't face what's happening, if we keep playing into their hands, we may not be talking about avoiding civil war. We may be talking about surviving one. Think about what's happening to the very idea of America. For 2 centuries, we told ourselves we were a nation defined not by blood or tribe, but by a set of shared principles: freedom, equality before the law, the right to speak without fear, the right to raise your children in peace, the right to be left alone. Those weren't just slogans. They were the glue that held the country together. They were what made someone in Maine and someone in Texas part of the same project. But ask yourself honestly, do those values still unite us? Or have they been hollowed out, turned into marketing slogans, stripped of meaning, while a new creed takes their place? Because right now, it doesn't feel like America is united by freedom. It feels like we're united by surveillance, censorship, and fear of saying the wrong thing. And when a country forgets its founding ideals, when the glue dissolves, what's left is just fragments, groups that barely tolerate each other, and the people who are supposed to defend those principles. They're the ones dismantling them. You see it in every headline: courts that no longer seem impartial, Agencies that once protected the public now weaponized against political enemies. Schools that were supposed to teach kids how to think now, training them what to think. And the media, supposedly the watchdog, has become nothing more than the lapdog of power, repeating the same approved slogans day after day. Ordinary people can see this, even if they can't always articulate it. They feel the betrayal in their bones. They know something fundamental has been lost. And when faith in institutions collapses, society follows. That's not speculation, that's history. Every empire that fell began with the people realizing they could no longer trust the structures that governed them. Now, consider how this plays out in daily life. A father tells his daughter she can't speak her mind at school for fear of being punished. A small business owner finds out that following the law isn't enough if the regulators decide to crush him. A voter goes to the polls and realizes both candidates are funded by the same people. These aren't abstract problems. They are real, concrete betrayals. They tell citizens, the system isn't yours anymore. It belongs to them. And when people believe that, when they accept that the system is rigged against them, they stop believing in democracy itself. That's the most dangerous point of all, because a people who no longer trust their own government will eventually look for alternatives, and those alternatives are rarely peaceful. So here we are caught between memory and reality, the memory of a country where freedom meant something, where institutions served the people, where leaders believed in the nation they governed, and the reality of today, where the rhetoric is still there, but the substance is gone. That's what makes this moment so combustible, because when a nation's ideals are betrayed, when its institutions rot, the people don't just get angry, they get desperate. And desperate people do desperate things. Look at the fault lines running through our society right now. They're not just political, they're cultural, generational, regional. They're everywhere. You've got whole swaths of the country that no longer share the same reality. People in rural America don't live in the same world as people in Silicon Valley. They don't even watch the same news, don't hear the same stories, don't speak the same language anymore. That's not diversity, that's fragmentation. It's the slow motion unraveling of a common identity. And when you combine that with the speed of information, the speed of outrage on social media, what you get is a pressure cooker. Every disagreement, every insult, every slight is amplified 1,000 times over until it feels like war. That's the problem with our age. It doesn't take armies marching to the border to start a civil conflict. All it takes is millions of people convinced they can't coexist with their neighbors. And the political class knows this. In fact, they thrive on it. Division isn't an accident. It's the business model. You're not supposed to debate ideas anymore. You're supposed to hate the other side. That's how power is maintained, by keeping ordinary Americans at each other's throats so no one ever notices the real theft, the real betrayal happening at the top. Ask yourself, who benefits when families stop talking to each other, when neighborhoods split apart, when every issue becomes a war? It's not you. It's not your children. It's the people who get rich off chaos, who cement their control while you're too busy fighting your neighbor to look up. And they're good at it. They've perfected the art of turning Americans against one another. Red is blue. Urban versus rural. Young vs old. Black vs white. Male vs female. Every fracture line is exploited and monetized. This is why the stakes feel higher now than ever before. Because when division becomes the organizing principle of a country, the country can't survive. A house divided against itself, Lincoln warned, cannot stand. That wasn't poetry, it was a warning. And we're ignoring it at our peril. We've reached the point where unity isn't even offered as an ideal. No politician talks about being one nation anymore. Instead, it's constant grievance, constant fear, constant rage. The fabric of the country is being ripped apart in real time. And the saddest part, most Americans don't want this. They want peace, they want stability, they want to raise their families. But their leaders don't want that, because peace doesn't sell. Outrage does. Fear does. Division does. And so we slide closer and closer to a place we don't want to be, where communities are armed against each other, where trust is gone, where the possibility of compromise is dead. That's not politics anymore. That's the recipe for internal conflict. And History tells us once a nation starts down that road, it rarely ends well. Power doesn't vanish when a society fractures. It consolidates. Look closely, and you'll see it happening right now. As ordinary Americans lose faith in each other, as communities tear themselves apart, the people at the very top quietly grow stronger. Chaos, after all, is the best friend of centralized power. When people are terrified, they don't ask questions, they don't demand accountability, they beg for control. And that's the point. The more fractured we become, the more dependent we are on the very institutions that created the division in the first place. It's a vicious cycle. Division fuels fear. Fear fuels control, and control deepens division. That's how free nations die, not with tanks in the streets, but with people surrendering their liberty because they've been convinced they can't survive without it. Let's not kid ourselves. Those in charge are not neutral observers.